All right, looks like we're down to 3 folks now, Denidra, Jacob, and Sarah. That's fine. We're going to start with question 43. Denidra, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
And can you see the PowerPoint?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. All right, so number 43, what are 4 categories of rapist behavior? That would be approach, control, verbal, and sexual. These are 4 categories that criminal profilers explore and that you'll ask questions about to develop the MO, modus operandi. All right, 44, what's the difference between the con approach, the blitz approach, and the surprise approach? Con approach, remember we are on the first category as approach, so now we're talking about different approaches. The con approach, the offender is charming, maybe asks her out to dinner, she's duped into trusting him. The blitz approach, he assaults her. She directly assaults, binds, gags, blindfolds. He's not trying to be a nice guy. In the surprise approach, he hides in the backseat of her car, in the bushes, and he breaks into a back door in her house. When she comes home, she comes in the front door, doesn't realize the house has been broken into. And she's putting the groceries down on the counter in the kitchen, and he jumps out of the closet. So again, these are all different approaches. Approach is the first category. So the second category is control. What are the 4 levels of control? Mere presence. He's there. He's 6'2" and 250 pounds. She's 5'2" and 95 pounds. And he just says, take off your clothes. Well, his mere presence is intimidating enough that she might do what she says because she's afraid he will hurt her if she doesn't. Verbal threats, take off your clothes or I will hurt you, shoot you, stab you, choke you. Display of a weapon, he actually pulls out a knife or a gun, do what I say or else. And then the last one in the control category is physical force. So we'll talk a little bit more about physical force only because these first 3 are pretty much self-explanatory. So again, we're in the second major category called control. There's 4 different levels of control, and physical force will be divided even further. Minimal physical force, he slaps her. Do what I say, she doesn't do it. He slaps her and scares her and she does what he says. Moderate, he hits her a few times. Excessive, he beats her until she's cut or bruised. And the last one would be brutal, sadistic torture. He wants her to suffer terribly. So that's the control. Now we're going to go back to our categories, and a third category is verbal. What are 5 examples of verbal abuse? Threats, demands. Threats, I'll hurt you, I'll kill you, I'll embarrass you, I'll come back. Demands that she beg, that she scream, that she say certain words, that she says he's the best she's ever had, trying to affirm him. Personal inquiries, He asks her about her sexual history, asks her about what she likes, personal revelations, his own sexual history, sometimes abuse that he suffered. For some reason, sometimes these rapists want to talk about their personal problems. So you ask these questions because it may be an identifying situation. Prior victims, you may say, you're the fourth woman I've raped. Well, now you can, maybe the police will be able to tie that in. Obscene names, you whore, etc. All right, what are the 3 profiles of rapists? Did I miss one here? Okay, well, 3 profiles of rapists: power rapists, anger rapists, and opportunists. Among power rapists, the experts divide that into manhood reassurance and manhood assertion. So a power rapist, manhood reassurance, he's confirming to himself. He's trying to convince himself he's a man. Manhood assertion, he's trying to convince the victim that he's a man. Why does that matter? Well, just as they develop criminal profiling to identify these people, they find that sometimes their personal background affects this. They also find that the manhood reassurance rapist will use stealth, and the manhood assertion will be a con artist. All right, those are power rapists. What about anger rapists? 2 types of those: retaliatory punishment and excitation sadism. The retaliatory punishment wants to punish women, often because of anger towards his own mother. The excitation sadism, he just wants to be cruel. He enjoys hurting people. And he is the one who's most, of all the rapists, he's the one most likely to kill his victim. All right, John Kreese joined us, and we are on chapter 10, question 51, John Kreese. Before we go on, anybody have any questions? 51, what are some complaints that sexual assault victims have against police? That the police express doubts about whether their story is true before they hear the facts. The police tend to be aggressive and rude. Police officers do tend to be assertive. That the job makes you that way, but you've got to work on your expressing compassion. They failed to explain the procedures. No one told me I had to go to the SANE nurse. Nobody told me that they were going to call me back. No one told me what would happen if identified a suspect, about lineups, things like that. But the police officers will sometimes say, well, you shouldn't have been dressed that way. Well, maybe she shouldn't have, but you have no business blaming the victim to the victim. Now, as we've talked about before, sometimes you will blame the victim when you interrogate the suspect, but you certainly don't say that to the victim. You're going to have to ask intrusive questions. There's no way around it. Rape, sexual assault is an intrusive act, but you don't start too early. You develop some rapport and show empathy and compassion first before you ask those types of questions. All right, what evidence should be gathered at a sexual assault scene? I should just say everything. That's the short answer. Sheets, pillowcases, blankets, clothing. This is outer clothing that she's wearing. If you do collect the outer clothing, then you will give her a chance to change without you there into something other outer clothing, but you're not going to ask her to change her bra or underwear. That will be collected by the sexual assault nurse examiner at the hospital. If he used a condom, the condom wrapper may have his fingerprints on it. Sometimes he'll use a condom and then take the condom with him, thinking he hasn't left any DNA evidence, but he forgets that he left fingerprint evidence. If he slapped her, choked her, pinched her, scratched her, the injuries on her arms, legs, perhaps stomach, depending on the location. But you don't want to take intimate pictures. You don't want pictures of her intimate areas. That will be done by the sexual assault nurse examiner. Anything he touched could have either DNA evidence on it or fingerprint evidence on it. Pretty much, I should just say everything. Everything that could possibly have evidence. Something as simple as a hair that he left on something may be enough to identify him. Always blood and semen and fingerprints and DNA. All right, 53. What are some reasons to not allow family members access to a sexual assault scene or to interview the victim? Well, first of all, if the family member is a suspect, other family members may try to protect him. Sometimes the husband or boyfriend of the victim gets really, really angry. I'll kill him, I'll kill him, I'll kill him when he finds out. And even though she's been raped and usually hates the rapist, if the rapist is someone that she knows, someone she went to school with, an uncle, a cousin, now she's afraid he's going to die, and she doesn't, as terrible as he's treated her, she doesn't want him to die. And so she may hide details. Maybe he made her do something that she knows that her husband would get really mad if her husband hears that the rapist made her commit oral sex or something like that. And so she'll hide that detail. And all of a sudden, you're not collecting the evidence you need to collect. What is an SANE? That is a sexual assault nurse examiner. These are nurses, usually they're in the hospitals, and they're especially trained to gather evidence in sexual assault cases. She's the one that's going to take intimate pictures of the pubic area, sometimes even inside the woman's vagina. Some pictures will be taken of injuries from a forced intercourse, etc. What is a colposcope? Number 55. This is, I guess, sort of like a microscope. It's taking close-up pictures, it's magnifying them, kind of like it has a macro lens on it. And it'll take pictures of cuts, bruises, both in her pubic area externally and also inside her, all the way up to the cervix area, which may have injuries. She's going to also look for semen, collect the intimate clothing like the bra and underwear, etc. Number 56, what is date rape? By the way, I know I keep talking. Does anybody have any questions? All right, what is date rape? That's where the victim knows the suspect agrees to go on a date with him. Dinner, movies, concert, whatever. And usually that's the end of it. Sometimes she may, if she feels really comfortable, she may invite him up to her apartment to watch a movie, eat popcorn. And he takes that as she's inviting me up for an intimate encounter. He doesn't mean it that way, but then he starts making his moves. She says, no, that's not what I want. And he doesn't take no for an answer. He says to himself, I spent a lot of money on dinner, movies, and stuff tonight. You got to give me something back for what I spent. So date rape. She knows her rapist. What type of rape was Bill Cosby convicted of? And that would be drug-facilitated sexual assault, the date rape drug. Drug-facilitated sexual assault. And it's funny, Bill Cosby was a millionaire, probably would have had women lined up saying yes to him, especially women who are trying to get acting jobs. And yet he still chose to use date rape drug. I don't know why. He was one of the most famous and richest actors, comedians in the United States, and now he's in prison for this. Incredibly stupid. What are 3 common drugs used in drug-facilitated sexual assault? We're on question 58. Rohypnol is one. Ten times as powerful as Valium. Not only does it put her to sleep, but causes amnesia. And that's what rapists love. If she's asleep, she can't resist. If she has amnesia, she can't even remember who did it to her. Second one would be GHB, also known as liquid ecstasy. Found at rave parties. It's actually legal if you have a prescription. Again, sleepiness, unconsciousness, so she can't resist, and amnesia, she can't remember what happened to her. Ketamine is the third one. It's a veterinary anesthetic. Requires a prescription for human use. Loss of coordination, numbness, and amnesia. All 3 of these have amnesia in common. The date rape, drug-facilitated sexual assault. The suspects love it that she can't remember what happened. Makes it hard to prove the case in court. If she can't remember what happened, you should immediately suspect that someone used a date rape drug. A sexual assault is very traumatic. There's no reason a woman wouldn't remember that. So if she can't remember, have her tested in the emergency room, have her tested, and have them take blood and test for date rape drugs. 59, what is VAWA, the Violence Against Women's Act? Women do not have to pay any medical expenses for their rape exam, sexual assault exam. Before this, they would bill the woman's insurance, and then she would actually end up having to pay the copay on it for her own exam. Not anymore. All right, 60, what's the difference between a lineup and a show up? A lineup is 5 or more suspects lined up. The victim comes in and has to pull one out of the lineup. A show up can only be done if under 2 hours since the event happened. And that's where, for instance, when you do the BOLO, be on lookout, and you're there interviewing the victim, and the officer says, "Hey, I got someone who matches the description," and he brings that suspect either back to the scene. If it's somewhere other than the victim's apartment, that's probably good. If it happened in her apartment or home, maybe you want to take him 2 or 3 blocks away and take her in a different police car to identify him, where she can hide from him if she needs to, but no need bringing him back to her house. So only do a show up if it's under 2 hours. Which is more fair or suggestive? Show ups are always suggestive. Why? Because what if you got the wrong person and you bring just one person back, and she thinks, well, the police know what they're doing, that must be him. And she doesn't always know, because he wore a hoodie, he wore sunglasses, he wore a mask and gloves, and so she doesn't really know if it's him or not, but she's thinking, hey, the police brought him back, the police are professionals, they know what they're doing, so that must be him. Yep, that's him. And suddenly he's going to prison for 20 years to life, and it wasn't even him in the first place. All right, 61, when you search a rape suspect, should you obtain consent or a search warrant? And the answer is both. Get his consent and get a search warrant. Why? Consent, search warrants are always good, but if anything's wrong with the search warrant, you have his consent. If you get his consent, he's later going to say, no, I didn't consent. Or even if I did sign that consent form, it's only because the police threatened me. So get both if you can. 62, what is a raise gestae statement? I must have gone by that. There it is. Recorded spontaneous statements. I'm sorry, just a spontaneous statements that you should record. The raise gestae means you didn't ask him any questions. He just admits to it. You knock on his door and he says, oh, you got me. How many years will I get for rape? Well, that's raise gestae. You didn't interrogate him. It came out of his own mouth without prompting, and that's admissible in court. What is the Miranda equation? Interrogation plus custody equals Miranda. The only time you have to read Miranda warnings if both of those are true. Both he's being interrogated and he's in custody. He's not in custody, you're just talking to him, consensual encounter on the street, don't read Miranda. If you arrest him, he's in custody, but if you don't ask questions, you don't have to read Miranda. So both have to be true for the Miranda warnings to be required. 64, should police be friendly with rape suspects? Yes, but what does that mean? And yes, you should be friendly because you're trying to build rapport at first. You're trying to be non-judgmental, number one, because maybe you're not sure you have the right guy, or maybe he's going to tell you, yeah, you know, she's been my girlfriend for 3 years. We slept together for 3 years, and she's just now saying that she said no. She just discovered that I had another girlfriend, and that's why she's saying this. Well, you need to get his side of the story. That may be true. On the other hand, you want to be friendly with him because even if he truly did rape her, you need to do your best to develop that rapport, and that'll be more likely that he'll make some kind of admission or confession to you. So yes, you should be friendly, at least at first. 65, what is meant by blaming the victim, and is it ever okay? Well, you'll always blame the victim during the interrogation because you're trying to get him to think that you're minimizing in your mind, you are blaming her instead of him, and he wants that. She flirted with you, she was dressed like a whore, she was a, well, this is not part of my regular vocabulary, but you will use this in your interrogation. She was a horny bitch that came on to you first. Well, wait, she kissed you? She kissed you? Well, you know what she wanted. Hey, if she had a low-cut shirt showing cleavage, you know what she wanted. She was inviting you to do it. And you're doing it, you're blaming the victim. Obviously, you don't blame the victim to the victim, and you don't blame the victim in court. But during interrogation, oh yeah. Blame the victim all the time in interrogation. What is meant by minimization? You're trying to make what he did less serious than what it actually is. Will you promise to stay away from her? If the judge gave you probation on this, will you willing to report once a month, pay a $60 per month probation fee? You never promise it to him, but you always use terms like this. So he thinks, hey, yeah, I can live with probation. I better cooperate with these guys. And I thought I was going to go to prison for this. And of course, he probably is going to prison. But you don't have to tell him that, or else he'll just shut up and demand his lawyer. What is meant by corroboration? Well, it's not legally required, but things like physical evidence, medical evidence, report to the police. An outcry witness is someone she reported to. So maybe she didn't call the police until 3 days later, but maybe that night she called her mother or she called her best friend, and those kind of witnesses corroborate that she really was sexually assaulted. Now, to make the case, all you have to do is have her come to court and say he raped me, and if the jury believes her, then they'll convict him, he'll go to prison. But The jury usually wants something more than that. If you don't have this type of evidence, then it's pretty hard to convince them, because they want to see the DNA evidence. They want to see the fingerprints. They want to see the injuries. They want to see the report to the police. She washes all the evidence away. She throws her clothes away. 3 days later, calls the police, and they're thinking, well, maybe she did say yes, because if someone saw him there or there's some DNA evidence, he can't say I didn't do it. He's got to say, yeah, we had sex, but it was consensual. And they're saying, well, maybe it was consensual. Maybe what he's saying is true, that she said yes and everything was okay until 3 days later when she found out he had another girlfriend, and then she reported it and made the story up. So without corroboration, it's pretty tough to get a conviction. All right, 68. What are some examples of when juries are not sympathetic to sexual assault victims? If she's been drinking, she goes to the bar and drinking, and someone takes her home, it's going to be pretty tough to get a conviction. If she's using drugs, they're not gonna respect her. She brought it on herself. She's drinking drugs, she's using drugs and drunk. You left the bar with a stranger. What do you think would happen? A woman hitchhiking? You're just gonna get in the car, in the truck with anyone you don't know? No woman's that stupid. So maybe you were hitchhiking and you offered yourself as payment for him to take you to Shreveport or Dallas. And then you decided you wanted to blame him. Dressing provocatively. So how do they know? Well, however she was dressed when the police got there, they're going to take pictures of those clothes. In the area where she was raped, they'll have video cameras of businesses that might pick up some evidence. She's wearing a mini skirt and a low-cut shirt with lots of cleavage showing and midriff showing. The jury is going to say, she was asking for it. So it's tough to get juries to be sympathetic if any of these things are true. Even if these things are true, she may still be a rape victim, but it's hard to get a conviction. All right, where are we at? 69. Is the victim's sexual history admissible at trial? Her sexual history with other people is not admissible. So you can't say, if you're a defense attorney, you can't say, well, she said yes to my client. And the reason I know that, not just because my client said she said yes, but look, here's 5 other guys she slept with in the last 2 months. That's not admissible. However, you can get her sexual history with this defendant. And so if this is her boyfriend or former boyfriend, it's admissible that they've been living together and sleeping together for 3 years. The jury does get to hear about her relationship with this defendant, if there is one. Number 70. Any questions? What is the difference between a criminal sentence and a civil commitment of a sex offender? The criminal sentence is the criminal sentence, the amount of time in prison that the jury gives him when they find him guilty. But even, say they give him 20 years, when that 20 years is up, if he's still a continuing danger, then they can give him a civil commitment. So it's a civil treatment facility, but really it's just a prison by another name. And that can be indefinite. Is it legal? The Supreme Court says, yes, it is. If the state can come up with proof that he's still a threat, a sexual threat to society, they can keep him in these civil treatment facilities indefinitely. $71. How long does a sex offender have to register in Texas? At least 10 years. So everyone must register for 10 years. Looks like we got 10 minutes left, but we're going to make it, so that's not a problem. More serious crimes, they have to register for life, but a minimum of 10 years. And the last one, 72. What was Jesus's attitude toward sexual sins? Well, he had a woman brought to him who was facing the death penalty, which was a common penalty for adultery back in those days. So she's facing the death penalty, and he says, neither do I condemn thee, go and sin no more. So his position is forgiveness and guidance. Forgiveness for the past and guidance for the future. We should have that same attitude towards people involved in some sexual indiscretions. All right, I guess that's the end. Any questions from anybody?
No, sir. No question.
All right, that's it. I will post, assuming this is recorded, right? I will post it for other people, but since y'all watched it, you don't have to. If you came tonight and missed this morning, I'll post the screen sections also.
Yes, sir.
And again, the test is Tuesday theoretically Tuesday at 11, but I will probably open it up at 8 a.m. Tuesday and keep it open something like 8 to 8. However, even though it may be open several hours, once you begin taking it, you'll only have 80 minutes till you have to finish. If you have questions, you can email me or text me. My phone number 832-563-1150. I can't think of anything else I need to cover right now. So I guess we'll leave it at that. All right, everyone, appreciate you joining us.
All right.
Hey, Dr. Hillman,
Yes, sir.
did you say you were posting the other video for the one you made earlier?
Yeah, I need to double check and make sure it actually recorded. It said I didn't have enough space to record, so I erased some old files, and then it seemed to record it okay. So as long as it recorded, I'll post it. I'll have it up within 20 to 30 minutes if it recorded. If it's not up in 30 minutes, that means it didn't record right.
All right, it's all good. I just missed the first 11 questions.
Okay. All right, no problem. Anybody else got a question? Hey, it's been a good semester. Sorry about all this coronavirus stuff. It's always funner to do this in class than over the internet, but hopefully we'll all be together again in the fall. And I appreciate everyone sticking with me. A handful of people have not stuck with it, but most of you have, and so it shows you've got character and you're self-disciplined. You don't not forcing me to push you, so that's great. Everyone have a good night, and email or text if you got questions.
Yes, sir. You have a good one, Dr.
Yes,
Hillman.
sir. Have a great night, Dr. Hillman.
All right, thank you.
Stay safe.
Thank you.